Okay, some parts we just got in here. This is a backing plate. The left side backing plate. The other one was destroyed. And I have the right side was out of stock. I'm waiting for that to come in. In the meantime, we can start to do the left side here and get this thing back on its wheels. Anyway, I'm showing you how this goes on. I mean, this is pretty heavy. The backing plate that's on there. I'll show you again what we're looking at here. It's just, I mean, you can almost peel it. It's so thin. And obviously, we had a definite water problem here, as I said before. Pretty sure this thing was in a flood. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take off the emergency brake cable, and then we're going to remove the wheel cylinder and the rest of the components. Here is the old hub, which I can't turn. It's frozen. I don't even know how the guy drove the car here, but it's probably why the ABS light was on. And also, we ordered a new harness. I had ordered it online. It was the wrong one, so I ordered the factory harness. And I bought these TRQ hubs here. Now, the factory hubs were about $350 a piece. I thought that was pretty heavy cost. These here. Now, I've used TRQ products before, plugs and coils, and I never had a problem with them. So these were a hell of a lot cheaper. I think both of these cost me $120. But here's the new one. Proper connection there. Check that out already. It goes on like that. And so, first thing we're going to do is get the backing plate on so we can put the brakes on. Now here's another parts I bought just to have them. These are all extra brake parts. It's like a kit. All new pieces. We have yet to find out if they're the right ones. So I did not buy these from Toyota. Let's get the old backing plate off and get to work here. Okay, so we got a little bit of a problem here. As you can see, I tried to take the brake line off. This piece of tubing here, the brake line, just bent. This is what it looks like. Because it's all corroded. There's no strength to it. And it wouldn't spin, you know. It just, maybe I have these lines, maybe I don't. But that's another thing we're going to have to get. And so now the bolt that holds in the wheel cylinder here is stripped, and the bolt that holds in the emergency brake cable is also giving me a hard time. It's kind of stripped. So I'm going to try to heat it with a torch and see if that loosens it up. And be very careful, because this fluid, this is the penetrating fluid that I sprayed on it. We don't want to have a fire here. Okay, so I heated the bolt, and make sure you use a 10 millimeter 6-point socket, because the 12-point stripped. The bolts are kind of beat up, but I was able to loosen it, and I can get this out now. And I'll do the same thing, hopefully, with the wheel cylinder. So I remounted the backing plate on here to give me something to hold on to here, because it was just, oh, look at that. So, all right, so get that off, and now we got to do by the way, I got a fire extinguisher there, just in case, because you know you're working over here by the fuel tank. So now, let's see if we can do the same with the wheel cylinder. Let me get this out. Okay, I heated this up, and now it's coming loose. Whew. That's scary. I mean, I can always get new bolts, but all right. And you can see all the corrosion around there. I'm not sure if maybe we should get some new wheel cylinders. Alright, next thing we need to do is get this emergency brake cable off here. So let's work on that. Okay, so while we're waiting for parts to come in, I'm going to clean this all up and get this ready. I still have to remove this emergency brake cable from the brake shoe, but this is also broken inside the car, and I'm waiting for extractor set so I can pull the seat out to lift up the rug to get to the cable. In the meantime, we're going to we try to loosen the bolts that hold down the brake line and the ABS, and they both broke off. Of course, you know, everything's just so rusted up in here. So I do have some extra brake line. I'm going to make a brake line for here if I can get this out. I don't know if I can, because I can't get my wrench in there. I might have to fabricate something to do that. So that's another problem. This is one issue after the other. So in the meantime, we're going to clean this up, and then when we get our parts, we'll start putting things back together. Okay, so this is pretty much cleaned up. I've got all the rust off here. I used a file to scrape off all the rust like that, and I was able to loosen up this bolt here. I had to heat it. I used a heat gun. I didn't use a torch because the gas tank is right there. You can see I have this apron, this leather apron there that I use for welding, just so there were no sparks, but I decided not to use a torch. It's too close to the tank. So I was able to loosen this up with the heat gun, and also this nut here. I got the brake line out. I still have yet to get this off, and this is may have to be changed also because I'm having a problem inside the car. The emergency brake also did not work, and the cable is broken. And let me get a light here. As you can see, I got it all apart, and here's the cable, and it's broken underneath. Something's wrong underneath the carpet, and I can't get the carpet out because I can't get the bolts out for the seat because they're stripped. And you know, it's just been one headache after another. So I ordered this rocket sockets, which are coming in the mail today, and hopefully we'll be able to get the bolts out, remove the seat, lift up the carpet, and find out what's going on there with the cable. That's just another problem. But in the meantime, what we're doing here is we have to make a new brake line, because this brake line, when I went to undo this bolt, I mean the whole line just tore apart. So I have these extra brake lines here. I've had these around for around 30 years, from a long time ago, and these fit. This end fits, and these are all steel tubing, double flare. So what I'm going to do here, rather than order the one from the factory, I'm going to use this one, make the bends in here, cut this, take this fitting off here because it's the wrong one, and then I'm going to put a double flare in and take one of these nuts right here, the ones that fit into the cylinder, and I'll cut that off. See, these have different fittings on the end, and we're gonna put a double flare on here, which I just tested using a tool that I bought many years ago. I'll show it to you right here. Old Forge Tools. It's a double flaring tool. It's a flaring tool, but it's a double flaring tool. So I'll show you what I did. I practiced a couple times to make sure I can get it properly, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so one more thing. On these bolts here that hold the ABS sensor, which is right here, I got a new one coming in the mail. I got this from the factory, and you know, The one that I bought offline was just not the right one. The problem here is that these bolts, these are studs. They're not bolts. And here's the bolts, the nuts that came off them, and they broke right off. So that's going to be a problem. But what I might be able to do is either rig something up that hold that ABS sensor down, because it's got a little slot in there that keeps it from turning like that. So options are, yeah, sure, I could tack weld that in and it won't go anywhere, but I'd really rather put a bolt in there. And the same thing over here. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do with that right now. And we have the new backing plate, the left side, which is right here. And the wheel cylinders are coming in tomorrow. We got the brakes, and we have some of the hardware. So hopefully we'll be able to get this thing back together. At least I'll be able to put the hub on. Keep moving. I'm going to do the brake line next. The only other thing is this brake line has some kind of a coating on it, like a shield. And I don't have anything that's going to fit over this line. I thought maybe 1/4 inch plastic tubing might fit. So I'm going to run down to the auto store and see if I can get a piece of rubber hose this size to put over this line before I bend it or after I bend it, so that we can have some kind of protection there. Okay, fortunately I was able to drill these studs out and tap this with 1/4x20. So now I can put those brackets back in there and secure the brake line and the ABS sensor. That's one chore out of the way. Okay, so this next step here, I'm making a brake line to replace this corroded brake line, and I started bending the tubing using this little tubing bender. And this piece here that twisted off came around and went into the wheel cylinder. So I'm going to put a bend right here. I might have to adjust this a little bit, because maybe I should wait until I actually get the wheel cylinder on before I bend this to make sure it's in the right place. So what we'll do now is we can cut this end off, and I bought a piece of rubber tubing, not this one. I couldn't find anything that thin to cover the steel tubing with, so I went to the auto store and I bought this fuel line hose. It's really thin inside, 3/16 looks like. I'm going to have to do a little work to get that on there, but it's on there for a reason, because this is next to your wheels, and you could hit a stone or something and it could kick up and damage your line. I'm sure this one was damaged because of the rust. So this is going to go in like this, and then it's going to come around and go right into the wheel cylinder, which is going to be right here. So let's wait until we get the wheel cylinder in position. We may have to bend this around a little bit more. So but we could cut this and take this fitting off, and we'll save that for tomorrow when I get the wheel cylinder. In the meantime, I picked up a couple of stainless steel 1/4x20 bolts. They're they're 1/2 inch, but they're a little too long, so we'll build it up with washers, and this will go on like this once we get the sensor, and then the brake line goes here. I'm still working on the emergency brake cable inside. I had to take the seat out so I could get to the carpeting to lift up, to find there's a little box or something here where this cable is hooked up to. It's not connected to anything, but I can't pull it out, so now I have to take the other seat out because I can't get the carpet up enough to get underneath there. So we'll save this for tomorrow, and incidentally, I want to show you how I got that seat out because those bolts were almost impossible. I went and bought these on Amazon. They're called rocket sockets. Okay? Rocket sockets, I don't know, it was 25, 30 bucks. Great tools to have. Worked beautifully. You just bang it on to those bolts. But the last bolt, of course, was the most difficult to get out. And what I did was I heated it with a heat gun. This heat gun. Once I heated it, came right out. Just so you don't really need a torch. You just need to heat it, because what the heat will do is it'll expand the metal, and then when you pull it out, it should come right out. So we could reuse these bolts, and also you need an 8mm 12-point socket to get those out or put them back in. So I have this one, and I ordered another one that is coming tomorrow, and I also ordered some crow feet 3/8 10mm crowfoot socket, which looks like we use them in HVAC right here. It's called a crowfoot. But I couldn't get the crowfoot, this wrench in there to get that nut off the brake line. So I was going to just cut this up and modify it, but I bought the a kit for like $6 or something like that, and that should be able to get us so we can get this brake line back in. Okay, that's going to be it for now. Tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow we can carry on. Okay, so let's have an update here. This is all cleaned up. I threw a little bit of rust-proof paint over that so it doesn't rust anymore. I do have another problem here with these emergency brake cables. I had to take the seats out and rip up the floor, as you can see, to get underneath here to check the cables. Here's the emergency brake cable. Nothing wrong with that. The cables are seized. Actually, yeah, they're seized. So, and that's one of the reasons why I could not get this brake off, because this whole cable, I can't pull this cable out to release it from that right there. This won't come. So we're going to have to just remove those cables. Are going right in on through the floor. They're frozen. They're seized. There's no working around it, and I'm going to have to order new ones. I wish I would have known that, but I had to take the whole car apart to figure that out. So I just got the wheel cylinders in, so we can now put the backing plate on with the wheel cylinder and the hub. ABS sensor is coming in the mail. It goes through the wall here and connects right there. So I didn't have to take this whole thing off, but once we get that in, we can finish that too. So we can start putting this back together. But now I have to order emergency brake cables. So let's start working on the hub assembly, and we'll go from there. So we got the backing plate. We got our wheel cylinder mounted. We're going to put some anti-seizing compound on these bolts, just in case. I got to look it up and see what the torque sequence is on here. I would, get these things started first before you use a power gun on here. And now, once we get this on, we can work on that brake line. I ordered new parking brake cables. Going to be another delay before I get them. But parts like that, you want to buy the factory. Now, these wheel cylinders that I bought are made in China. Of course, what's not made in China? And I'm not fussing And these wheel cylinders, I mean, the hubs, these bearing hubs, were a lot cheaper from TRQ. I'm concerned with that they work. All right, let me finish this up and then we'll move on to the next. Okay, I couldn't find any information in my manual on the rear hub torque. I did go online, Toyota Nation, they said 59 foot-pounds. I kind of think it should be more than that, but I'm going to do 60. Okay, we got 60 foot-pounds here. All right, moving right along. The next thing you want to do is get this brake line in here. And we need to make another bend. We have to cut this and put another fitting on here and do a double flare. So I just want to get this lined up, get it started at least, so I know where to bend it. Okay, so I got that started, and I used this special crow foot to get in there, tighten that up. I'm just snugging it up just so it doesn't come loose. But now I need to mark off where I'm going to bend this. It's coming into right here into the valve, so I need a curve right about there. So these bolts, I drill these out. I said before, I just want to reiterate that this is the sensor. ABS sensor goes there. There's a clamp that goes on here, which is on the old brake line, which I'll take off and put back on here. So we need to just mark this right here where we want that bend, and we'll make about a 90, maybe a 85. Here's the bracket, the clamp, I should say. This is the old brake line, and disintegrated when I tried to take it off the wheel cylinder. It's been a real challenge, this car. All right, so let's see if I can get in here. Right here is where the port is for that fitting, so that goes right into there. So we want to have the bend right about there. So what I'll do now is I'll take it off so I can get my tool in there, a little tubing bender, and then I'm going to just pray. And I also bought a piece of fuel line hose, a thin piece of fuel line hose, to protect that steel line, because the old line, as you can see, has got a protective sleeve on it, and I'm sure it's there for a reason, probably because you're kicking up stones and things like that on the road. You never know what could damage that line. Last thing you want to do is lose your brakes. So we're going to get this in here using the 3/16. Okay, now where's our mark? Here it is right there. So we want to bend this right about there. See the mark down there? When we bend that tubing, it should be lined up with that mark. You know, this is steel tubing. It's not easy to bend without a tubing bender. It's going to go like that. It's going to go like that. So now we want to cut this and then do the double flare on here. We want to cut this right about there. And I'll show you how to make a double flare. I have a special tool set up just for that. So we're going to cut that. So let me get this all prepped up and then we'll continue. Okay, so the way you do a double flare, okay, so here's another brake line with the proper fitting on here. So we're going to cut this. I just checked it with the wheel cylinder. Make sure the thread's right. No metric. So we'll cut this off just because we need that fitting. I mean, you could just go out and buy the brake lines, but I'm trying to save some money here. So I have these brake lines. I've been laying in my shed for probably for 30 years. Back in the 90s, I bought an old Fiat Spider and I restored it. It took me 3.5 years. and these are all leftover parts. Okay, so that's the right thread. So we're going to put this on here, but before we do that, we've got this piece of hose. I believe this is the right hose. Yes, it's all I could find. I couldn't find anything else. Let me work this in. Okay, this is what we got, right? So now we're going to put this fitting on here, and we're going to take our adapter. Let's see what size we need. I believe it's this one here. Right. Now, when you put this on your flaring block, it tells you right here in the instructions that you make the distance between that is exposed on outside the flaring block. When you put it, it says that the thickness should be equal to this ridge on this adapter, like that. So that piece there, not this. This. You want to have it sticking up. And I'm going to show you what I mean. When you put this in like this, and you want to have it sticking up, it's a little bit too much. It's got to go down just a little bit. Right about there. Now you want to make sure you tighten this, because if that slips, it's not going to work. So I'm going to take my vice channel locks here, make sure it doesn't slip. You don't want that to move, otherwise it won't work. Alright, so now you take your flare tool, you put your adapter in, like that. What that's going to do is it's going to flatten out the tip of that tubing. And then we're going to follow up with a flare. It just makes it a lot thicker. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, then you take your flare tool and then you flare it, and that's what they call a double flare. You'll mostly see these on brake lines. Sometimes we use it in refrigeration, air conditioning work. Okay, let's see what it looks like. And that's a double flare. And that's going to go right in there like this. Okay? That's how you make it. So that's our next step. By the way, I bought these wheel cylinders online from whatever this company is. Could have gotten the Toyota ones. So the next step, I have a clamp here that's going to go over this to hold that down. So the next step, which is going to be really difficult, is to see if it fits. Okay, we got it in. Be careful not to cross thread it. And then we'll use our crow foot here to tighten up this one. I'm just taking my time on this because This is crucial. The only thing we need to do once we tighten this up is I can just bend this a little bit, get that clamp in there. But that's not so bad. It's pretty good. We've got to tighten up this. And that's a really difficult bolt to get in, a wrench to get in there. You can only do it with special tools. And the crowfoot, it's good, but it would be helpful if I had something different, like a smaller 10 staller. This is a 3/8, a smaller 10 millimeter. All right, so we got that in. We'll snug that up. We'll get our bracket on there, and we'll continue. Okay, so while we're waiting for parts to come in, I'm starting to work on the right side now. So far, I've disconnected the speed sensor, and this is the parking brake cable, which I had to cut because I couldn't get it off the brakes, the brake shoes. It's seized, just like the other side. So these were ordered. I got those coming in. I got another backing plate coming in. I have the wheel cylinders. I have the hub. I also broke this bolt here trying to get that out, so we'll re-drill that out and tap that. And the brake line is another question. The brake line I was able to get off, and I'm just not quite sure about it. When I started to remove this nut from the wheel cylinder, this tubing started to twist. It's really tight and rusted in there. I think we're going to have to make another brake line, or maybe just order, since I'm going to be waiting for another week or two to get the parts. Maybe I'll just order another brake line and save myself the trouble of making another one. I'll decide what to do on that. Another thing I wanted to point out is the brakes. Now, take a picture. If you're not a brake guy, take a picture of, before you start to disassemble, take a picture, okay? But I was able to get this off in one piece after I cut the cable for the parking brake, which is right here, right there. But this is how it goes, so you know if you ever get stuck. And this goes like, this piece goes in there, that spring goes in there, and then it goes into this hole right here. Okay, and your parking brake cable goes into this part right here, and I couldn't get it off there. So let's see if I can give you a better visual on this. And also, by these springs, they're a little bit rusted up, but they're probably better than I may use these that came in this kit. I don't think this is worth the money, because everything else in here is useless. Even these pieces here, I'm not quite sure I want to use them. I'd rather use the factories. What I could do is disassemble all this and put it in the tumbler, to clean it up and take off the rust. But I wanted to give you the visual where everything goes. So here's the piece for the parking brake cable, so that when you pull this, it expands the shoes, and that's what makes the parking brake hold. So there's the visual. I also made a picture of it so I can see just how everything goes, just in case. So now I made this tool right here out of some scrap metal I had laying around, which I'm going to do and attach to the hub like that. Pull this off and bang it with a hammer right there. We'll see if that works. I haven't used it yet. And first we're going to move these bolts holding that hub in. Now I'm going to use a breaker bar. Okay, we're just going to crack them, and then we'll use the drill gun to pull them out. Okay, let's try. Here's our impact wrench here. Okay, today we're going to replace these parking brake cables, and there's one for each side, so let's figure out which one is which. Now, the reason why I have to replace these cables is because, as I've said earlier, this car was most likely in the water in a flood. This looks like the right one here. Let's check the other one. There's the left and the right. There's two separate part numbers. And here's the part number. Okay. I don't see. Just cable assembly parking. Alright, so here is the other one. So this one right here is for the passenger side, the right side, and this one is for the other side. Now, let me show you why I have to change these cables. I had to cut them off the brakes because these cables are frozen, right? And if you look at this one here, the new one, you see how that moves? And I couldn't get them off the brake shoe, the parking brake lever. So that's the reason why I'm changing. Okay, so that's that. So here's the old one, and this goes in through here. Oh, let's see if I can get your. So it's gonna go through right through that hole right there. It's going to come in right through there. Like that. As you can see, right there, and it gets hooked into here. Like this. Right, and the other cable, of course, goes on the other side, and then this is your leveler, and we'll get that hooked up too. So I also bought some extra bolts that we will use because the other ones are a little rusted up. Now these are just standard bolts, but if you want the part number, there it is. It's 10 millimeters. Okay. Leave those there, and then we're going to go under the car. Try to get some more light on the subject. I'll get under there. We're going to need a 10 millimeter ratchet right here. So here's the driver's side parking brake cable. You can see I cannot get this cable off because it doesn't move, it's frozen. So that's the reason why we're changing these cables. Okay. Now we're going to mount these cables. They have the brackets already on them, so we just have to find the location. Okay, so here's where your parking brake cables come through the floor from the underneath the car, and they connect to this bracket here. You can see there's slots where you just stick the end of the cable into the slot from underneath and then pass the cable up through here. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Take this like that, and you'll notice that it fits in like this, and then you pull, make sure this is centered, and then you slide it so that way. And then this cable right here, let me move this out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. Hardest part about this whole job is getting the seats out. Alright, so here's the parking brake. What you need to do is you have to take the cable. This part of the cable comes up through here, and then there's a nut and bolt that screw onto here. This is going to go like this. See? And then there's this bolt here, and there's another bolt that goes on top. This is how you adjust the parking brake. You know, when you take this apart, you'll see how it goes. And then there's another nut that goes on top of this that locks it in. So I'm not going to pull this lever at this point in time because my brakes are not hooked up yet. But that's how that goes in. So you can see it's caught now. You would just take a 10mm and tighten that up. See? And there's another nut which is right here that goes on top of that, and then you just lock the two nuts so they don't come loose. Now this comes right off. You just take these two 12mm nuts off here, and you can just pull this whole thing off so you can get to it, because there's a little tab underneath here that protects the cable from coming out. I'm going to take this off right now to show. I mean, I had this all on the video, but my camera wasn't set properly and couldn't see anything we're doing, so I had to do this all over. So I'm taking this apart to show you what I'm talking about, so you know what to do. Just loosen these two nuts, and then this comes off. The cable comes off right here, just like that, and then you can get in there and and also this whole handle assembly comes off. There's two bolts that hold the whole handle on. There's one here, and there's another one underneath here, right there, that takes off this whole handle, so you can get to, if you have a hard time getting to the cable. But that's about it. It's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to do a little vacuuming here, clean this up a bit, and then we're going to carry on and do the rest of the project. This is the locking bolt right here that goes on top, and I'll adjust all this once I get the brake shoes on and start, you know, set the cable. Alright, I'll be back. This cover right here, this sits in here like this, and there's these little clips. If you break them, they're easy enough to replace. Push that in there like that, and like that, and that keeps that intact. Alright, time for a little house cleaning. Okay, we got some more parts in. We don't have everything yet. Still waiting for the spring kit for the brakes, but we got the backing plate and we have the other bearing and hub. So before I install the backing plate and the hub, I'm going to clean this up a little bit with this wire brush. Okay, this goes in just like that. This is your speed sensor connector right there. And so we're going to put a little anti-seizing compound on the bolts. This is the right side, just in case you need the part number. Alright, what does that look like? Does that look like Mickey Mouse ears? Alright, so this goes like this. Let me get this other hole here. Goes like this. Our wheel cylinder goes right in there. And we can put that in. This goes like this. Let me see if I can get some light over here so you can see what I'm doing. Get these bolts started before you use a drill gun on it, an impact wrench, just to make sure you don't cross thread them. Now I'm waiting for a couple of more parts. I got a new brake line I ordered. Instead of making one, I decided to buy the factory because I needed parts anyway. And I'm waiting for the spring kit for the brake shoes to come in. I sent the other ones back that I bought off of Amazon, the AC Delcos. I just didn't like the quality. And I'm also sorry I didn't buy the factory brake shoes because they look like they're better made, and they're not that much more than the ones I bought. So I guess there's a lot to say about using factory parts, even though these hubs, the factory hubs were $300. I guess with the tax and shipping, it would have been about $375 a piece. Okay, so I got this set at 60. It says 59. I got this off the internet. The manual I have didn't tell me, it doesn't show the wheel hubs torque specs. So I went online and it said 59 pounds. I'm going to do 60. Alright, next I'll put the wheel cylinder in. Alright, so I bought a bunch of new bolts. I didn't want to put a rusty bolt in there. This goes like this. This is a 10 millimeter bolt. This is your speed sensor, but I want to show you that there's a guard, this piece right here, that goes over that to protect it. Okay, so that goes on like that. This guard is actually broken. It's on though. No, it's not on. You know what I'll do is I'll put a cable tie around there to keep that on there. But the sensor, the harness is connected. So let me get a wire tie, fix that. Alright, that seems to be snapped in place now. It's pretty tight. I just don't like this clip here, and my cable tie isn't doing the job, so I'll figure out something else. In the meantime, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hook up our parking brake cable. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. See, I couldn't get that out. And by the way, these are the Toyota brakes, and there's a lot of meat on there. I'm almost tempted to reuse the old shoes. Okay, my friends, we're back. Today I got some of the parts, or one of the parts I had on order. Just came in. This is the brake line, factory brake line. Just going to go in there like that. It did not come with the little clamp, but I can take it off the old one. I saved it. The other thing is, I ordered also a brake shoe spring kit. And so this part came in the mail today, and then they said, well, we don't have it. It's on back order, and there's no ETA. So, I mean, I waited 10 days for that spring kit, and I never got it. I'm not sure if I want to use the aftermarket brake shoes on here, because let me show you something. My main concern is that all these components got wet and got rusted, but brake shoes always get wet anyway. You go through puddles. I can't do anything about that. But here is a caliper, and so here are the aftermarket shoes. So let's just take the same shoe. I mean, it'll work. It's the same thing, but for some reason or other, the play in here is not in there. You know, this just feels like a much tighter setup to me. So we have on the aftermarket brake shoe, so that's 0.21. Original ones, 0.19. 0.2 of an inch is not going to make much of a difference. Still plenty of meat on these original shoes. So I'm just going to reuse them and then send these aftermarket shoes back, because I'm not content with the quality of the material. So there you go. Just a little FYI. Alright, now let's work on getting this brake line in. We'll have to remove this clamp. So I removed the clamp from the old brake line. In case you want to know, here's the part number, 47323-74010. This is the right side. The left side, we replaced the brake line, but we made it. And I figured as long as I was waiting for parts, I'll just order the factory brake line. So here we are. Alright, now this is going to go in. Just like this. It's going to go in like this, and we're going to have to drill out this broken stud and tap that out so we can clamp that down. Okay, the brake line's in. That's done. Let's move on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our brake shoes back on. And you want to clean all your parts and make sure these threads on these adjusters move freely, because this is how your back brakes adjust. Every time you back up, this little lever in here moves. It pushes this wheel. It's got teeth on it. I mean, I'm not really a brake person, but I've done brakes before. This is a pretty simple setup, and I've decided to use the factory shoes instead of the aftermarkets because I like these, seem like a better quality. Okay, so you want to make sure this is all cleaned up right. And then this here, your little adjusters here, you want to get some grease on there. Okay, put some lithium grease on there. We clean this with a wire brush. This goes in here like this, and then this spring right here, this goes like this. See how that works? That's going to turn that wheel when you back up. This goes in like this, and this rubs up right up against that wheel, and that's how the wheel adjusts, usually when you back up. Okay, let's assemble the rest of this and get it on the car. Okay, so before we put the brake shoes on, we're just going to put a little dab of this lithium grease on these backing plates. And these flat spots here where the shoes touch the plate. Right there. Right here. And right here. Okay, right here. And right here. I think that's got them all. What that will do is it'll help the shoes slide back and forth easily. Okay, so that's on there. And this goes like this. And this goes into the wheel cylinder like that. Now we get our springs, retainers. Okay, that's the left side. Just double checking to make sure everything looks copacetic, and everything does. So now the only thing we have to do is put our brake drums on and adjust the brakes and then bleed the brakes, and we'll do that tomorrow. Tonight we'll just finish up and do paint the drums. Okay, here are the brake drums, and they've just been painted. So we're going to put the brake drums on. Put these on. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to adjust the brakes, and then we're going to bleed the brakes. And I have two ways to bleed the brakes. I have this Motive Products power bleeder, which I've had in my garage. Haven't used this thing in 30 years. Not even sure if it still works. And I also have another one here. This one works off a vacuum. So we'll figure out which one we're going to use. And we'll do that last, and then we can get the wheels back on and get this car rolling around again. Alright, so moving on. Okay, my friends, we are winding down with this project, and we're finishing things up. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust the brakes. Before we adjust the brakes, just want to remind you, if you're not a brake person and you're doing this DIY, the direction that you adjust this wheel here to expand the brakes out, to adjust the brakes, just take your right hand, this is the right side of the car, take your right hand, face it towards the front of the car, and look at your thumb. Your thumb is pointing this way. You can see that is expanding out and it's pushing the brakes up against the drum. And the left side is the same, the left side the same way. You put your hand out this way, put a couple of lugs on here to keep the drums secure, flat so it doesn't move. Just hand tighten that. And then you take a brake spoon. This is called a brake spoon. And there's a slot in the back of the backing plate. Let's see if we can see that. It's right here. And what you want to do, remember, the right side. So you have to get in there. It's probably best to get it from the other side where you can see. But I'm just trying to show you. You push your brake spoon in there and you'll grab that wheel and you start turning it like this until you start to feel a little friction. And you know that the brake shoes are rubbing up against the drum. So let me do that, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so now we're underneath the car. Let's see, make sure you can see that. Here's the slot I'm talking about, right here. And you want to reach that wheel, and you want to turn it
counterclockwise.
You keep adjusting it. You see how, I don't know if you can hear that, but the brake shoes are now rubbing up against the drum. Okay, you want to have a little bit of drag on it. That's good. So we'll leave that for now. There's a little rubber plug that goes on here to keep the moisture, I should say the water, from splashing in there. We'll put that in there next. We may have to readjust the brakes once we get the wheels on it, but that's how you adjust the brakes. Okay, so here's the plug, and it goes in here like this. It might be easier to get this from the top. There you go. There you go. You can see that? That's in. All right. Okay. Now, on the left side, put your hand facing the front of the car, thumbs pointing that way, clockwise, right? If you turn this clockwise, that's clockwise, you can actually hear that click. It's expanding the brake shoes. So, what I usually do is I adjust it to a point where the brake drum is snug, but we're going to put the lug nuts, 2 lug nuts on here just to hold the brake drum in place, because when we bleed the brakes, I'm going to keep this all lined up. Okay, so now we want to go clockwise. So we get our little brake drum, brake shoe adjuster, and we get in there into that slot. Other people may have different ways of doing this. This is the way I've been doing it all my life. I'm not a brake person, but I know how to do brakes, at least on this car. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of drag, but not enough. Okay, you get the gist. So I took the drum off so I could show you with the brake tool here where you want to get in there. You see how I'm gripping the teeth on that gear? I'm doing this. And that's expanding the brake shoes out up against the drum. Okay, in this video, we're going to bleed the brakes. And there is the brake cylinder, master cylinder there. Be really careful because brake fluid can take off paint. So here's our motive power bleeder, and I just got this adapter. I want to make sure this adapter is going to fit. I believe. Okay, it seems to be on. Let's go put some brake fluid in our canister, jack up the back, take the wheels off. Alright, we're at 12 pounds. This little rubber fitting to the bleeder. That, and we're going to get an 8mm. Okay, let's see what we got going here. I only pressurized the tank at 5 pounds. Now we got 10. Okay, pump it up a little bit more. No, it's only down to 8. Let me close this for a second to get better. Here, let's try that. I don't know why they have this extra hose on here, because this is a catch can. Alright, let's check the master cylinder. Looks full of me. It's looking a lot better. Okay, let's close it off, and then we'll do the other side. Now this is the furthest wheel from the master cylinder, the longest distance, so you always do this one first. Okay, we're going to put some more pressure in here, bring it back up to 10. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, now I had absolutely no brakes, so I know there's a lot of air in there. Don't forget, we changed the brake lines, wheel cylinders. Okay, now I'm going to pump up the brakes and see what we got. Okay, we got a pedal now. Great. Now I'm going to go bleed him again. Looking good. tiny, tiny little bubbles in there. Okay, now I'm going to do the other side again. Okay, that looks good. All right. That's how you bleed the brakes. You test the car, make sure the brakes work. Okay, so this adapter, I bought this off of eBay. It's about $20. Amazon also had it for $35. Same thing. So, okay. So we have just a little bit too much fluid in there. The line is right here. So, I can take some out. It's a little higher than normal, but it's better. Okay. There you go. Brake bleeding made easy. Okay, you got a pedal, take it for a test ride. If the brake feels spongy, it means you still have air in the lines. And don't forget, we changed the wheel cylinders and the brake lines. There's a lot of air in there, and it could still be some more. So we'll take this for a spin and see what happens. Hey, looks like we got brakes again. So that's it. That's how you do rear hubs, brake lines, wheel cylinders, brake shoes, and brake bleeding. That's it for now. Let's get on to the next one.